Hello, everyone. I'm Prosecutor Pete Lucido, Macomb County Prosecutor, and I'm here today with J.P. Hunt. John Paul Hunt is the chief of our Warrants Division. In fact, that division is, in my opinion, the most important unit that we have at the Macomb County Prosecutor's Office, because after a police investigation, everything comes to you. Tell us, JP, number one, what's a little bit about your background? Tell us how you got involved with the Macomb County Prosecutor's Office, how long you've been there, and about the Warrant Division.
Well, thank you. First, thank you for having me.
Sure.
I've been with the Prosecutor's Office for 20 years. I get my 20-year pin this year.
Congratulations, 20 years.
I'm a former police officer, but after being a cop for about 7 years, I moved back to Michigan, where I grew up in 2000. Substitute taught, worked at Dyke-Magossett, and then applied to the Macomb County Prosecutor's Office, where I was Eric Smith, the former prosecutor's first hire 20 years ago, and served in various roles within the department. And then, lucky enough, when you came in, I got appointed to basically try and fill Dean Allen's shoes, which never will be filled, but Dean was a great resource for our office and a legend, and I'm just hoping to do half the job he did.
So what happens? A police officer or the detective bureau goes out, does a crime scene, as far as it could be body cameras that they have, police reports, witness statements, pictures, photographs, all the above. What happens when they bring it to you?
They bring it to me. That's unfortunately, the community sometimes has this idea that we do the investigation at the Macomb County Prosecutor's Office, and we don't. We have to rely on the various law enforcement agencies within Macomb County. They bring all the stuff that you just talked about, the reports, the statements. Now we have body cams, car cams, there's cameras everywhere, which obviously increases the workload. There's so much stuff to look at, and they bring it to the Warrants Division, and then we look at it. And the officer in charge, the detective, brings that to us, and he's asking for a specific charge. I need to review all of the evidence, and then based upon that evidence, make a determination whether or not we should authorize that charge or deny the charge.
You have hundreds, if not thousands, each month come through your office or your unit as the chief of warrants. Are you signing all the warrants as to charges, or is there other units that you have to refer to?
No, we get the bulk of the warrants, but we do have specialty units in our prosecutor's office. As you know, we have the felony DV unit, we have the child protection unit, we have the consumer unit, we have an auto theft unit. So those chiefs of those divisions, they get their own warrants that they review. Now, if they're in court, certainly that's where I step in as chief of the warrants unit, and I can look at a warrant and review it. And if I do that, then I make contact with them and tell them, hey, I reviewed this case, here's the facts, this is why I authorized what I did, so that they know that I authorized one of their cases.
You made it a really, finite to say we have these body cams, door cams, even cameras that go across the street and roof cameras. All of these things are compressed into data. The data comes through a link through the police department now that obviously goes ahead and catalogs everything that the police officers are offering in hopes to get their warrant signed for charge or charges. So all of this material has to be reviewed. On an average, what does a case take to review, from a very simple assault and battery, let's say, to a more complex, like a drug case? How long does this take with all of this?
Well, I would say all cases are different. Obviously, you know that with your experience as a former defense attorney and now the lead law enforcement official in Macomb County. Let's take a driving while license is suspended or revoked. That's one of the easiest cases to look at because there's not much there. A person gets pulled over for whatever reason. Maybe they ran a light. Maybe they switched lanes without indicating. They get pulled over and their license is suspended. There's not much there to review. You look at what the police officer said. You look at their record to see if their license is suspended. That, on average, takes less than 5 minutes to do.
And a record check to look at.
And a record check to verify. However, in a case that's like a carjacking case or an assault with intent to murder case where you've got multiple witnesses, you might have multiple scenes, you might have multiple agencies involved. If there is a fleeing and eluding after the case or after the fact, if the person flees, there's a lot more to look at. So that can actually take an hour, couple of hours when you're done, by the time you're done reviewing all of the squad car cams, the body cams, the statements, because a lot of the statements you're reviewing they come from the police officer's body camera.
And I remember having discussions with you when you became the chief of the unit, saying the most important unit, I believe, is the warrant unit, because this is where somebody's life will be drastically affected, and or their family's life, because you're charging an individual with a crime. And even though they're presumed innocent until proven guilty, it is the initial stage of the process of going through the criminal justice system. So we take it extremely serious. I know that each unit that has chiefs, like you just indicated, the drug unit, the auto theft unit, et cetera, has chiefs in it that look at the warrants with their members of the unit to make sure that everything is packaged properly, so that there's more than just probable cause. There's an understanding that we have to prove this case, don't we?
Correct.
So those elements have to be there as part of the overall process before one is charged. After they get charged, could you explain to the viewers out there what you need to do after you sign a warrant? And I know that a lot of the stuff is now coming in on this carpel system, which is, as we talked about, photographs, body cams, door cams, police reports, witness statements is all now given to you electronically. We're not wasting time, taxpayers' money, bringing the officers off the street. We're keeping them intact to do what they do best, policing. But they get it in there on higher profile cases. I know you meet with the police in person. But the more lower level cases, like you said, driving while license suspended, it could be where you just need this information and show in the body cam, for instance, where the crime was committed. Tell us how that all works.
I want to go back to what you said about how important it is when you're charging a case, because that is very important. I'm just going to rip the top off and tell you that I've been here 20 years, and unfortunately, the Macomb County Prosecutor's Office used to have a reputation of make-em-up county or overcharge county. There were a lot of defense attorneys, a lot of people in the community that thought we overcharged things. I take that very seriously. So when I have a report come across my desk, I'm not just looking at the warrant request, which is a summation of what the crime was and what the OIC, the officer in charge, is asking for. I have to take the time to go through all of the police reports, all of the evidence, all of the statements, all of the videos, and that takes time. Because at the end of the day, you are charging someone. At the end of the day, someone may be going to jail on this. So I take that very seriously. And you're right, I do meet with the officers in charge on the more complex cases. We ask that officer to come in so that they can present everything, so there's no miscommunication between our office and the law enforcement agency. And that's basically...
So the first stage, after you go ahead and you sign for somebody who's being charged with a crime, and you give the warrant back to the officer that's requested it, they go to the court and they do what's called a swear-to, do they not? Tell the viewers what the swear-to is all about.
So basically, once I get all the information and I determine, after looking at all the evidence, that there's enough there to support the elements of the crime, I sign the warrant. The whole packet then goes back to the officer in charge. The officer in charge then goes over to the court, swears to it, that says that the information in this packet is true, and the warrant's signed, and that actually begins, what really begins the court process from there on out.
There's another layer of insulation or ensuring that a person that is going to be accused of a crime not only saw it through your eyes that the elements were there, as an attorney who has studied the law and now with 20 years experience, plus law enforcement background, have the ability to look at this and said, well, set of eyes looked at it. Now the officers who are presenting it have to swear to the court that everything in that report, everything that they gave you is truthful, correct?
Correct.
So that's good. I like that, because our system should be made up of fundamental fairness and an opportunity to have due process, which is being innocent until proven guilty in a court of law.
But then you took it one step further, Pete. If you remember, we sat down and we talked about it, and you created the appellate division here in the Macomb County Prosecutor's Office. No other county that I know has that. And basically what that is once I sign, or if I deny a warrant, if I don't think there's enough there to deny or to authorize that warrant, and I deny it. Sometimes I get blowback from the officer in charge because they're mad at me for denying the warrant. They think there's enough there. I don't think there's enough there, so I deny it. If that victim is unhappy with my decision, they can then contact the OIC. The OIC then contacts the office, and our office has an appellate review board for warrant authorizations, where there is 3 to 4 or attorneys in our office that don't know that I'm the one who denied it, and they look at it blindly. And if 3 of the 4 people decide that that should have been authorized, then the case is authorized.
I often felt that if a defendant who became convicted in a court of law has the right to go and appeal, why shouldn't a victim who also feels aggrieved and feels that justice wasn't provided have a right to appeal?
Yes.
And maybe that was from the lenses from a defense lawyer all these years. Be that as it may, I just think that the criminal justice system has been punched around long enough where the black eyes need to go away, and said, look, we've got cameras now that are proving these crimes, but we have also an appellate division if you don't feel that you got justice from the initial stage.
Well, look, Pete, I'm not proud that I told you about that our office used to be known as the overcharge office in the Tri-County area, but by the same token, now you have asked, there was a time where there was only one prosecutor in the office reviewing warrants. On all murder cases, on all serious cases, on all traffic fatality cases, now we have a unit in our office called the Major Crimes Task Force Scene. There's a group of 4 or 5 attorneys that make up that specialty team, and then I go in and I sit with them on some, myself or Dina Keller, who also has about 23 years experience in the office, will go in and sit on there. So you actually have 4 to 5 sets of eyes looking at all the facts to make sure that all the T's are crossed, all the I's are dotted, and that the elements of the crimes are there before we go ahead and sign the warrant.
It's critical for a lot of reasons. One is you want to make sure out of the gate that you have the proper information, that you question the information, and that you know going into this that we have the best possibility of proving the case before one is charged.
And many times when we sit in that conference room with the 3 or 4 detectives, sometimes there's only 2, sometimes there's only 1, we will say, before we sign this warrant, we need X information. You got to go back out and you got to talk to this person, or you got to go back out and talk to the medical examiner, or you have to go back out and get photographs of this, or I want that car processed for evidence.
And sometimes we don't even sign these warrants until we know that all the investigation is completed, which means there may be blood that has to come back, there may be drugs in someone's system and that may have died, or it may be some physical evidence that needs to be tested chemistry-wise or what have you. We need to get all that information, tie it all together so that we have everything at our disposal to make the right decision.
Correct.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate everything you do in that warrant division. I know that you're there around the clock, it seems like, because you're catching calls. You've got other people that are below you, which means that are in your unit, that you're overseeing, and even on the weekends. Tell us about weekend warrant duty.
So unfortunately, crime doesn't stop on the weekends. So we have a weekend warrant attorney that goes out to the jail, and all the crimes that are committed, instead of doing it electronically, the officers in charge are bringing paper packets to the jail, and we sit there and review the evidence, same process, and we either authorize it or we deny it at that time. It's a little bit different process. Our office has a lot of new faces,
Yep.
So sometimes it requires me to go out and just help out and make sure that we do it the right way.
Especially if they're new, you want to make sure they're doing it the right way for the first time so that every time thereafter, they've got a complete understanding on how the process works.
Correct.
Well, I appreciate everything you've done. I mean, more importantly, what you're doing every day. It's sometimes yeoman's work, but somebody has to do it. But your knowledge, your experience, your expertise goes without saying. It's leadership, and the way you govern yourself in the office is very commendable, and I want you to realize how important it is to me to have you there and what you think needs to be done to strengthen our criminal justice system. So thanks for all you do.
I appreciate your support.
You got it. Listen, everybody, if you have any questions about how a warrant is issued, or you want to take, and ask these questions, you just reach out. We can have you take the call at 586-469-5350 and ask for the warrant division. JP will be there, or somebody that's working with JP in the warrant division will pick up your call and give you explanation. But we don't go ahead in detail on the cases, because if cases are still under investigation, we don't investigate, as JP said, but we don't comment on cases either, because we don't want to prejudice the rights of the accused. I want to thank everybody for tuning in today and giving us the opportunity to explain to you with transparency and openness how the process begins in a criminal case. Thanks for joining us. Have a great day.